Good morning. Welcome everyone to OPEN-TEC. Today, we are honored to have a gentleman who takes the leadership roles in many leading organizations in Thailand and have extensive experience in various fields like technology, telecom, and accounting. I'm sure that we can learn a lot from him. Let's join us in welcoming Khun Andrew Mcbean, the Director of UiPath.
Another key spot, that human bond, we were meant to be free. Get them up to speed, get them working fast.
Hello, how are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, fine, thank you. I'm good, thank you very much.
Where are you now?
I'm in Chonburi at the moment.
Oh, okay. You are not in Bangkok?
No, working from home, just at the moment. Yeah, and yourself?
I also work from home. Right now I'm in Suphanburi, in my hometown.
Okay, very nice. Nice to be home.
Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready, yep.
Okay. Then let me start with your background. I remember you since you were GM at Microsoft, taking care of many countries. Could you please tell us about your story? What attracts you to work for a long time in Thailand? And the secret of how you can manage to jump among different fields, and what sort of core competency that you find in common. And you also just finished a Bachelor of Science honor degree in chemistry last year, right? And now doing a master in space science. And do you have to unlearn and relearn at all times, Andrew?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. In fact, that's one of the things we might come back to a little bit later is the importance of kind of challenging the status quo a little bit. But I think in terms, your question's a really good one, and I know it was a good one because it really made me think hard about what is the answer. But actually, the answer to a lot of your question, I think, distills down to just a few key points. I mean, one of the reasons, I mean, I've worked. Of course, I'm from the UK originally, so I'm Scottish actually from the UK. So I worked, of course, in the UK, and then I went to work in South Africa, and then I went to work in Japan, and then I went to work in Indonesia, and then I came to Thailand. And in fact, with South Africa, Japan, Indonesia, and Thailand, it was all with Microsoft actually. But I was thinking, what's the sort of, and the fact that I have been in different industries as well. I mean, I've been in tech for the majority of my career, but not all. I have spent 10 years in accounting firms as well. And of course, you mentioned the degrees as well. So I think one of the characteristics which has kind of driven that for me is actually just one word, which is curiosity. I'm a very curious person. I'm a learner. About everything actually. So I read a lot. I'm reading the news. I want to know how things work if I don't know how things work. And I think that really helps with the fact that I've been able to go to these quite different countries and cultures because I'm fascinated by all of them. Genuinely fascinated by all of them. And with curiosity comes, I think, some other things, which just means you ask a lot of questions. You tend to ask a lot of questions. So, and I think this is quite an important thing for people is to. I always remember way back when I was a young salesperson, they used to say you've got two ears and one mouth, and you should use them in that proportion. You know, because a lot of sales guys are just talking; they're not listening. Whereas in fact, you need to understand what the customer issues are, and so I think that curiosity has helped me with a lot of those things, traveling through the different countries, getting experience in different industries, but just because I'm curious. So that's actually, I think, by far the main thing for me. It's been a driver in my whole life, actually. That's something I got from my parents. I think another thing is kind of, I would call it simplicity or simplification. I never think of I really don't think I'm an intelligent person, but I think I'm a practical person. I kind of like, in English we would say an experiential learner. In other words, if I get thrown into a situation, I'm usually able to kind of work everything out, if you know what I mean. That's sort of an experiential learner. And if you, at the end of the day, for businesses, businesses are kind of similar. You know, if I was trying to think of a business that doesn't have, for example, customers. Every business has customers. Every business has a product, either it's a physical product or a service. Every organization, every company has a route to market, a route to its customers. So it's either partners, strategic partner, or various different partners, in fact. So actually, the common denominators of businesses are not really very different, if you know what I mean. So you have to really get to know a customer. Obviously, that's the key. Get to know your customer. Get to know what their requirements are, their needs are, their issues are. That's a key one. And that I think has been a little hallmark as well. When I was first working at Microsoft, it was already a very successful company at that time. And I remember when I first joined, customers would just phone up and say, "I want to buy your product," and I used to think, well, that's how lucky is Microsoft that people do that? Because my previous companies, I had to sell my product. I had to communicate the benefits of my product. And then I started to realize that actually, if you get a bit lazy, if people are just phoning you up asking you for your products, and then you become complacent, and that's very dangerous when you do that. So you've got to anchor yourself on the customer, and you've got to. I don't particularly get too distracted by competition. That's good. It makes us stronger, I think. But the key is you have to understand your customer, and that's the same for every single industry, actually. And then the route to the customer are the people that you're working with. Are they motivated? Are they do they have issues? How could we make it easier for them to sell and carry your products and services? So. Again, these are common, actually, and of course, employees. Your employees have to be motivated, and they have to be happy, and they have to enjoy coming to work in the day. And I wanted. I don't think I was doing this on purpose, but there was always, I think, a bit of a legacy where I think people found themselves doing things that they never thought they could ever do. I have when I went to Microsoft in Indonesia, it was a very small organization. Of course, Indonesia is a very big country, and I remember thinking, okay, I've got to how do we motivate ourselves to be a bigger subsidiary? And the next biggest country in size to us was the Philippines, and it was a big jump from where we were to the Microsoft Philippines. So what I did in the first company meeting is I said, in 2 years' time, we're going to be bigger than Microsoft Philippines. And I remember everybody laughed. And even myself, I was thinking, well, that's going to be quite a stretch. But then we started to sort of internalize that into our mantra for everything that we did. We compared everything that we did to what was happening in Microsoft Philippines. And 2 years later, we became bigger than Microsoft Philippines. And then we were on a very great trajectory then and the staff were all, of course, motivated and happy and then carried forward themselves, even greater success. So I think, looking after employees and making sure that they're motivated, but not in a false way, in a genuine way, of course. And that passion comes with that as well. I think you can't motivate people unless you have passion for what you do, passion for your team, passion for your customers, passion for your partners, passion for your technology, passion that you're doing the right thing as well, that you're making a difference. So curiosity, simplicity, passion, and the last thing is, I would say, detail. Sorry, this is a long answer to your question. Detail. I don't, success is not a sort of an accident, I don't think. I read recently a quote that said, luck is where opportunity meets preparation. I like that. Luck is where opportunity meets preparation. And I always thought in my life I've been very lucky. But actually, it's probably the combination of those two things. There's genuinely always opportunity. All of our businesses is opportunity that we haven't yet explored. And by, appropriate preparation and working with your team, you can connect that opportunity with that and build your business. So that was a long answer to your question, but it boils down to curiosity, simplicity, passion, and detail.
Okay. Oh, good Andrew. Actually, I like many of these words because before this, I discussed with many leaders of the organization, and they mentioned about the curiosity. I think the curiosity, like you mentioned, is very important. And that's one of many things that you mentioned, right? And also I like the experiential learner, as an experiential learner, and the practical, do things in the practical way, simplicity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's very nice, and also you emphasize on the point of the understanding of the customers, and also you have way to motivate your people, right? And also you kind of stretch your target, very high target, right? And motivate people to achieve that.
The motivation is sort of, I think you're unlocking people's inner potential. Actually, you can't externally motivate. You can, but what you're doing is you're unlocking that internal passion and motivation within a person, which is limitless. I think all of us have limitless opportunity, but for some reason we confine ourselves. And so I think a good leader will find a way to unleash that and give it space, and give it space to be free and not to be afraid to try new things.
Okay, so that kind of release their potential, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good, Andrew. Now let's talk about the next part. Is about the leadership during the crisis. I heard that you just shift your career in the middle of COVID crisis, right? And you may not be able to meet many people during this time. Any trick that you overcome that challenge?
And then another very good question that made me think. I mean, I've if you're in any leadership position, and if you've been a leader for some time, you're inevitably going to have had crisis. And I've in my life, I've certainly had a few. And actually, I think this was interesting. I was already leaving. So I was actually working for a company. I was CEO of a global accounting firm. We had 100 staff. They have 100 staff. We had 100 staff at the time that COVID struck. And I'd already told the leadership that I was going to be leaving. And then COVID happened. And so that was kind of interesting because I really had to, right at the end, I really had to, with the other leaders in the organization, try to help navigate that, 100 people through that. Because if you remember, that was, right at the time where people were very worried. It was just kind of starting. And it was changing, the things were changing every single day. That's the thing with the crisis, is that things tend to change every single day. So you need to be on top of that all the time. You need to be very agile in a crisis. You need to be, it's a daily, you need to connect daily. We were having daily management meetings in the morning for, pulse for half an hour to check what was new, to check if we had to do anything differently. And then of course, I left the company like at the end of March, and they were doing fine through that crisis. And then I joined UiPath on the 1st of April. And as you remember, we were fully locked down on the 26th of March. so really quite bad luck and bad timing, because I couldn't go to meet any customers, partners. I'd met a few members of the team before, luckily, but we couldn't meet together as a team. So I think the one thing, though, that encapsulates all of those crises is communicate. It's where you don't communicate clearly, and I would say quickly, but you've got to be careful with quickly. I'll come back to that. But communicate clearly, because if you don't communicate clearly, any space of doubt is filled in by the worst case scenario, by the employees. So you want to not create that space for fear or making things up by themselves. And I've certainly been in organizations as an employee when there was a lack of communication when it came to a crisis, and people make up their own version, and it's always worse. It's always worse than the real version. And I would say, when I say quickly, I think one has to be very careful with quickly, because when you make a decision, it's got to be a very clear decision. It may, frankly, not always be the right decision, and you may have to modify your decision, but you've got to make a decision. You cannot let people wonder what it is you just said. I've had leaders who've said something, and I thought, did they mean this or did they mean that? I'm not sure. It's kind of like hedging the bets a little bit. But for me, from leadership, you need to be very sort of concise about your decision, and usually explain your decision as well. Otherwise, again, that's going to create, people will put energy into trying to kind of second guess why you made a decision, or was it the right decision, wasn't it? You have to tell people why you've made a decision, based on facts, of course. So I would say those two things are clear. And actually, in any crisis, the thing that made this different was that you had to do that all online. And of course, you have to make sure then that people come to the Teams call or the Zoom call, so that we could all discuss this together.
Yes.
Communicate, but also make clear decisions as well. And I would say that's the same with in fact any crisis. But just when you're online, you have to do that. You have to do that online, and you don't have the advantage of being face to face and have the body language, when you're doing this virtually, and that can create a few more challenges as well. So you have to, I would say, probably you need to almost over communicate on this media, as opposed to face to face.
Okay, so during the crisis, what you have done is the key is the communication, right? It has to be clear, concise, and try to make the other people understand what we would like to communicate also, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, they may not even necessarily like the decision. That's not the leader's job to make everybody like the decision, but it is important that it's communicated and the reasons for it are stated clearly.
Okay. Okay, Kun Andrew, as the leader in many organizations in Thailand, do you have any idea of how to build the Thai leaders? What the key elements that Thai people should have to be able to lead the international organizations?
That was also another good question because it made me think. And I've been very lucky because I worked with, I worked all my leadership positions. I've been working with Thai people, of course, who've been very successful in international companies. And in fact, I think I'm the only foreign general manager for Microsoft. All the others were very successful Thai general managers, and currently one as well as a Thai general manager. I think I was trying to think of what, for me, when I was in the organization, when I was in any international organization, the kind of thing that differentiated, I think, anybody, and I wouldn't just say it's from Thailand, it can, when you're in a sort of a non-native speaking environment, it's not actually just about Thai. It's about not being afraid to communicate, not making sure that you communicate. Those are the, because what it is you have to say is valuable and important, that the company hears your voice. And I think that's the thing which I've noted sort of has distinguished the people that I've worked with. They're not afraid to state that voice, state that opinion, and that's not easy. It's not easy for a number of reasons. First of all, there's a language issue, which that's probably the least of the issues. The other one I would say, and this is perhaps a little bit more cultural, is within Thailand there's such deep respect for like seniority, and that leads to perhaps people not wanting to voice their thought, especially when you're in a position of talking to a leader. So as a leader, you need to create that safe environment for people to express. And a good way of doing that is to ask what their opinion is, ask what their opinion is, ask what their opinion is. Because, I found that when you did that, people really had a lot they wanted to say. And it's the same thing. If you're not listening, you're not receiving this input. So to ask people what their input is. And once you did that and started to build that culture of being interested in somebody else's voice, I think you found that people offered their voice more and more and felt safe and secure to offer their voice as well. And within Western companies particularly, and not all successful companies are Western companies, of course, but they don't really, anybody at any level of seniority can have a discussion very directly. It's not really an issue. And that sometimes I think is a little bit difficult for people to kind of get their mind around doing that, I think. And it takes practice. That's one thing I noticed myself, is it does take practice. You've got to kind of force yourself to do it, and then and you get better and better and better until it becomes just natural. And then when it's natural, it's so much easier to do after that. I think it's kind of like networking. So you've got to really practice networking, and it's kind of like that actually. It's networking, but in a multinational environment.
As the leader, you have to keep asking people to provide the input, and also you have to be interested in other people's voice, right?
Exactly right. And once you've created that environment, people want to speak. They want to tell you. they want to tell you. But if you create that environment, that sort of safe environment for people to express their voice, it eventually becomes the culture of the organization, and then you don't have to insist on it. It will come to you.
Okay. Yeah. I see. Because when we not feel safe, right? When people ask, "Do you have anything?" No, right? Normally we get no. Until we feel safe, then we dare to speak up, right?
Right. Exactly.
Okay, Kun Andrew, you used to be the elected chairman of British Chamber of Commerce Thailand, or BCGT, right? And you also have lots of experience collaborating with many other chambers, right? Any recommendation for the large or even small organizations to gain advantages from working with the chambers?
Yeah. That's another great question, because again, I had to think hard about the answer. So I just stood down as the chair of British Chamber of Commerce in January of this year, actually. So And I was thinking what a good comparison would be that perhaps we would all understand, and that is that let's say that we as an individual want to get fit. We recognize that actually getting fit is going to be good for our body. It's going to make us stronger. We're going to live longer. It's fitness basically. We might go and buy a gym membership, and in the gym they have lots of weights and shiny things and trainers and yoga classes and all this kind of stuff. And then what if you do that, but then you don't go to the gym, or you go once a month? I mean, this is a little bit the same with chambers, but I will call it business fitness. Chambers are excellent sources of information, networks, personal networks, professional networks, and again, they offer all chambers, and the British Chamber is one, and actually I would say all the chambers that do this as well. They offer a huge amount of different activities, and, some online, of course, when we can meet. There's lots of meetings and informational events, some social events, some networking events. But if you have such a membership and you then go and take advantage of that membership, just like everything, you will get much more value from your initial investment. So it's kind of like, I would call being an active member of a chamber, I would call it business fitness. But one of the key aspects of that, and I think it's important to mention it, because I came late to this actually, was the importance of networking, personal networking. It's actually really important, and from a business perspective, but also from a personal perspective as well, because in some time you might be also opportunities, or you may be, and I don't just mean working for another company. You might be interested in developing your own product or developing a marketing service, and within those networks that you get access to, there's a treasure trove of experience and wisdom and information, and personal contacts that you can build on throughout your whole career. And that is not easy. I think a lot of people, when they first go to a networking event, they go into a hall, there's 130, 150 people there. They don't know anybody. It's nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking.
Yes,
it is.
yes.
But that was the same with me when I first started. But I practiced, and I was late to do this. I wish I had done this. I wish I had done this earlier in my professional career. I only really did it when I left Microsoft, actually. But I think it's a vital skill, and that vital skill is also very useful when you're working inside a company as well, because at some level of seniority, networking becomes very important. We might not like to think that it does, but who inside an organization, and who knows you, and who knows what you do and how good you are, that's important. Whether you like it or not, it's important. Somebody else telling that person that you're great, you can't rely on that. You have to tell them that you're great. So this kind of concept of networking, I think is an exceptionally important one for all of us, actually, both from a business perspective, which you can really get a lot of practice in a chamber, in a chamber, because people are very friendly, actually, very friendly.
Yes.
And it's also, I think, vital to career progression inside an organization, especially as you start to become more senior. This networking is a vital skill to develop and get good at, I think.
Okay, so you find that chamber is a good source of information, networking, and activities, right? And I like the way you explain. You compare this with the gym, right? Like we have to go to gym, we have to be active, otherwise we will not get the results, right?
Exactly.
And
yeah.
And other than that is you mentioned about the business and personal relations, right? Also, right, that we can gain from the chamber, and also we can also apply this skill of networking within the organization, and it's important for the career progression, right? It's kind of like good connection also, right? With others.
Yeah, and another thing I would add to that networking and the importance of networking is that you mustn't do it when you need to do it. You must do it when you don't need to do it. That actually, people can smell the fact that you need to do it, and so this is a kind of a strange thing that you should do it when you don't need to do it. You should do your networking. You should kind of invest in that. That's really a long-term investment in your own future career. It's not a I'm doing something for this year. It's something that you're really looking forward 5, 10, 15 years in networking.
Oh, okay. I like that. We must do it even though we don't need to do, right?
Yeah. In fact, that's the most important time to do it is when you don't need to do it.
Okay. Good Andrew. Now let's move on to the technology trend. During working from home, we are quite familiar with technologies like Zoom, Microsoft Teams. Beyond that, what's the future technologies that you expect to see to enable that?
Yeah, this is I'm quite fascinated personally by this subject because there was a study, I think it was by McKinsey, that said what was it? I think it said a decade in a month or something, and what it was a decade in a month, and it was saying that because of COVID, and we also drove online. It drove digital, so something that was already a trend, a digital trend, and was growing, significant growth. Suddenly, because of COVID, within a month, 10 years of that growth was scrunched into 1 month. Like online learning and and of course our Zoom calls and meetings and all this kind of stuff. So and I think this fascinating. I think is once I'm not entirely sure that we'll ever be out of. I'm not sure there'll be a post-COVID. We've got variants and all this kind of stuff. There'll be a better post-COVID. Definitely a better post-COVID. So I suspect that we will be in some sort of hybrid situation going forward, that not everybody will be going back to offices, and not everybody will be going back to offices all the time. And of course, not everybody can work from home, of course, if you're a nurse or something like that. So that's very, very difficult to do. But I think I feel we are gonna end up in a sort of a hybrid situation. And one of the things that I was thinking about is that the tools that we're using, so the tool that you and I are using right now, this was built for a pre-COVID era. It was built for a pre-work from home situation. It was kind of it wasn't meant to be replacing the office environment. It was meant to be adjuncting some communication when we were distant or remote. And so this I think fascinates me, is that I think the technology will and has to become one that represents the office environment, but in the home, if you know what I mean. Now, I don't know what that looks like. You could think of a sort of a 3D hologram meeting room where everybody is present in the room. You should have like whiteboards, because when I'm in a meeting room, I need to touch the whiteboard. I may not even be writing anything sensible on the whiteboard, but I need to touch it. I need to write, because I'm a visual learner as well, so I tend to visualize things. And a lot of people like to look at pictures. Of course, we can use our PowerPoint and share screen and all that kind of stuff, but it's hard to collaborate. So I think the tools that we're going to be using, and I mean that both within the software, the cameras, and the way that we can visualize the room and the people that we're with, I think they will have to change for this new world of working. I mean, I like Zoom and Teams. I think they're great, and and goodness me, I mean, where would we be if we didn't have them? But they are not the office environment at home. They are not what they were built to do. So that is, from my mind, the next sort of evolution, the next step of evolution of software, of technology, when we're going to be in this hybrid situation. And of course, already we have remote, diagnostics, for example, in hospitals and stuff like that, and using robots where the doctor could be even in another country, and the robot is acting. Somebody was telling me a story a couple of days ago where a robot did keyhole surgery on a knee, and the person felt much better after 2 days. Actually, it was my nephew. My nephew was telling me this, and my nephew had an operation with a doctor on his knee, same operation, and he couldn't walk for a month, and it was in pain for 3 months. So some in some cases, maybe the robots are able to do a better job of some things, and that's a quite sophisticated thing, doing an operation. So this is going to be something which is going to accelerate, and all of us should be looking at this. I think this ability to be able to do things remotely, but do things in a collaborative way remotely.
Okay, so you will you expect the hybrid situation, right?
Personally, yes.
And also you mentioned about the office environment at home, the new world of working, right? And the robotic that can help us more in the future. Now let's move on to the issue about RPA. Like, many people may be familiar with the robot, right? In general, we may think of the human-like robots like Sophia, Joyce, or even Transformer. But what you are doing now is about RPA, the robotic process automation. I understand that it is the automated process software which help perform the repetitive task, right?
Correct. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay. Could Andrew, could you please tell us more about RPA by UiPath, and is it different from others, and how does it help to transform the way of work?
Yeah, so it's interesting. You said that about. I think as soon as you use the word robot, you kind of have in mind something shiny and metallic and physical. But RPAs, robotic process automation, is software, and it's fairly. This is one of the interesting things about RPAs, is it's fairly unobtrusive software. A lot of it, in fact, is sitting on the desktop, and this is quite interesting because, I have an IT background, and all of us here who have IT backgrounds will know that when you start to do things with legacy systems inside companies, and there are a lot of legacy systems, and they're kind of stuck together because they haven't been built over time, and they're all sort of a kludgy. These legacy systems are quite fragile, quite delicate, and if you really want to do something meaningful with information and data and work, and in fact your legacy systems, in the past that's actually been quite difficult to do, actually, to unlock that value. But RPAs have come along, and because they're relatively unobtrusive, a lot of them are just working on the desktop, they're actually uniquely able to unlock a lot of the value which is sitting inside those legacy systems and the silos and so on, and basically they do your, as you said correctly, the mundane repetitive work that people do every day. So common things like logging into websites, going into applications, transposing data, taking things from one place, putting it into another place. They are opening emails and being able to go through the emails and look for certain key data and information, pull that out. And when I give a presentation about what are RPAs to business leaders, I ask the business leaders, I say, what percentage of the work that you do inside your organization is repetitive? Is done over and over again? And I get incredibly high figures. Some will say 60%, 80% of the work that they do is repetitive. Now, I think that's quite high. And I was in that case, I was asking an insurance broker and an accounting firm. But there is a very high percentage of work that we do, all of us, which is actually quite repetitive. And the great thing about RPAs is they are able to take away that repetitive work. And if I said to anybody, hey, what if we could like wave a magic wand and take away all of your repetitive work, all the tasks that you're doing? I mean, nobody enjoys doing that work. I don't think anybody gets out of bed in the morning and says, oh, I'm so looking forward to doing exactly what I did yesterday. That I don't think that's many people's inspiration. So if we're able to take away those tasks and assign those to robots, because they can do that work, that frees up the individual who has lots of experience and knowledge about their organization to create extra value. So they're a happier employee, and they're able to release kind of value from the organization for the organization. Think of new ways of doing things. Which is, I think, that's the really exciting thing, and in a relatively simple way, because our robotic process automation, RPAs, are quite easy to use. And I think this takes us on to, you were asking particularly about UiPath. I think one of the outstanding parts about UiPath technologies is it is very easy to use. And what this has done, because it's so easy to use, is it's not necessarily just in the domain or just inside the IT organization, because the IT organization are really busy. We know they are. They've got a 5-year plan of things they've got to do, and all of them are important. And so if that's just another thing going into IT, it's going to be, slow, probably slow. Whereas because RPAs, robotic process automation, and UiPath particularly are so easy to use, we can get this automation into the hands of the staff themselves. The staff can actually use our software to develop their own automations. We call these citizen developers. And a lot of organizations, we have a lot in Thailand, for example, who've trained hundreds of their own staff on how to develop automations using UiPath. And that sort of suddenly unlocks a kind of a box, if you know what I mean, which was otherwise restricting your capability. It suddenly allows it inside your whole organization. And then people can start to do their own automations as well. So this RPAs are unusual in many things that I just mentioned, and the fact that they're kind of relatively unobtrusive. They are easy to use. In our case, in UiPath, we have a huge community with free training, forums and support and so on, which is around that as well. That's a very, very active community. You can download free trials to try it out, to use it as well. We've just been doing we're doing a month-long training, for example. I think it's closed now, but I've got one of my customers that has 90 of their staff doing the training courses that this kind of 1 month, 5 hours a week training course, because all these people will become citizen developers and develop their own automation. So it's easy to use, and it's supported by this massive online community as well, which is going to be able to produce. And by the way, within that community, there's also reusable components and so on that you can actually take advantage of too. And also in our case in UiPath, it's actually what we'll call an end-to-end automation platform. And so what I mean by end-to-end is, most RPA solutions will have things which build, manage, and run the robots. That's kind of normal, should be. But in our case as well, we've got a lot of software on what I would call the process discovery side. This is really a fascinating area, I think, for me. And it integrates into the robots, into the core business as well. So these discovery, for example, we have a solution that we can automate something repetitive. But what is the problem? and to do that, you've got to discover processes which are right for automation, which will have high return on investment for your automation. So there are discovery tools now within automation, which you can deploy inside organizations, and very powerful, which will enable organizations to find out what are the right processes that should be automated and will give the highest return on investments and so on. So there's discovery software. And then at the other end of the platform, there's insight software as well. So making sure that you understand how all of those robots are deployed, whether they're being fully utilized, which could be better utilized. This gain sort of insight into your deployment, your automation deployments as well, and governance as well, because you've got to be a little bit careful when you start rolling out automations and the robots. You've got to have certain standards. You've got to have certain governance standards and security standards for those applications. So that's also something which can be brought in by this platform as well. And a lot of organizations are further extending this RPA technology capability with artificial intelligence and machine learning. So they become able to learn for themselves. So the RPAs may be able to automate, let's say, 50, 60% of something. But when you then incorporate that into an artificial intelligence or machine learning environment where it's learning, it will then become 65%, 70%, 75%, 80% as it learns. So, and we have organizations in Thailand that are deploying this their RPAs inside their AI and machine learning environments, and the RPAs will basically the robots will become more and more intelligent and able to make more and more sophisticated decisions based on that. So that was a very long answer to your question. So it's so at the heart of it is, yes, they're doing the repetitive and mundane work, but in our case, they're particularly simple to use yet powerful. We've got this really strong ecosystem around. Plus, also we're working in an end-to-end platform as well. So, and that's made us a leader in this market.
Okay, that's interesting. I found some keywords from what you just mentioned. Actually, lots of keywords.
Too many, sorry.
Yes. For like to first of all is the unlock the value of the things that sit inside the legacy system, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And also to help to do the task that repeat over and over again. Okay. And for UiPath, the difference is there are different points from others. For example, like it's easy to use, right? So the staff can like do their own development, right?
Yeah.
To do their own automation, right? And you also have the free trial.
Yep.
Which is interesting, and you talk about the end-to-end, which is normal, right? A lot of people have built that can build, manage, and run robots, but you also have the kind of what you call discovery process, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's right.
It is the kind of integrate the process into the robot also, right?
Correct. Yeah. Exactly.
And another point is regarding the insight, right? Insight software and governance, that it is the key elements that you also incorporate into your software, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
That's about it that I can catch.
You did very well, actually. That's very well. I think that was a very good summary of the points. Yeah.
Okay. Could Andrew, how's the significance of the RPA market?
Yeah. This is, I mean, because of the reasons we just talked about now, the fact that they are so easy to deploy, the fact that they can unlock this legacy value. There's a couple of dimensions we have to think about the market, the RPA market. One is just the software market itself, and the other one is, and which is to me is more exciting in a way, is the value that's unlocked from when you deploy RPAs. So the RPA market themselves, so Gartner was saying that in 2021, it's a $1.89 billion market, and that's up 19.5% over last year. And it's expected to carry on double-digit growth through to 2024. So in itself, it's a very fast-growing market itself. So we're a very fast-growing company in a very fast-growing market. But the really exciting dimension, I think, is the value that it unlocks. When you start to deploy RPAs inside organizations, then you are going to have several very important benefits. One that we talked about earlier was happier employees. Happier employees because they don't have to do the mundane work that they were doing, and they're free to create new ideas. Actually, sometimes they can create ideas which were not possible before because that idea might have said, okay, well, we need 10 people to do that, we can't do it. But actually, when you think that you can do it with a robot, that barrier suddenly goes away, and so you actually get breakthrough ideas as well, which bubble up from these people who are now free to use their valuable experience and qualifications to add value to the organization. How can I serve customers better? How can I get to market faster? What new product can I develop? Where are other markets that we could explore? This is what an employee can do when they're freed up from doing kind of the more mundane work. You'll have better customer experiences. We know for a fact that average handling times go down and net promoter scores go up because customers are left waiting less time, but also the information they're getting is much more relevant and pertinent. I mean, you and I both know that when we go on and we speak to customer service, we want an answer, a valuable answer, as fast as possible. And you can even do things, using chat robots as well, where they will actually you can even do insurance claims using chat. And of course, the robot is the thing behind the scenes, which is kind of getting all the information and interacting with all the various different systems. But the person is chatting, and you can actually process an insurance claim using a chat. And the robot is taking care of that behind the scenes. So the better customer experience, and also you'll reduce risk because robots don't make mistakes. If whatever is in the source will be in the destination, 100%. So, but when humans are transposing data from here to here to here, or just here to here, it's incredible the mistakes that can be made. And they can be, mistakes can be very costly for a whole bunch of reasons, of course. And so they introduce a level of transparency, which is very good from a regulatory perspective as well. So reduce risk for the organization is another powerful component. And I think probably the biggest one is just the increased operational efficiencies. The company is just operating more efficiently. It's just able to, the things which were taking hours or days are now taking in seconds and minutes. So there's just a much faster ability to be able to do business as well. And I think with COVID, this has proven that we need to, it's more and more and more important as we become more and more in an online world, that we need to be very agile inside our businesses. And legacy systems are surprisingly static, but a business needs to be dynamic. And RPAs are very good at bridging that gap in a very cost-effective way.
Okay, Andrew, so you mentioned about the size of market, right? It's very huge. It's like $1.89 billion, right?
Yeah.
And it's like fast growing market. Like you expect the double digit in the coming year, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And also another interesting point that you mentioned is about the not only the value of the software. This market can be another kind of value that have the value from unlock people, that they can have more time to create, and like once they are free, they can create the new ideas and serve and using this kind of automation to serve more business and also help their customer better, right?
Exactly.
Okay, good, Andrew. It seems that RPA can help tackle the manual process, especially in the back end. Are there any business cases that RPA can enhance the new revenue generation, the product support, or even in the pharmaceutical industry? Could you please give us some samples of use case?
Yep. So you mentioned yes. I think one you mentioned the back office. That's quite important because every single, I think almost every organization has IT, finance and accounting, legal, and also HR, and all four of those have very, very high potential for automation, and they're in almost every single organization. So, there's a huge amount of value to be obtained just from those kind of horizontal parts which are in every single business. Then, of course, each own business has its own kind of verticals. So you might have, for example, supply chain management, which is a key one. Also, you might have sort of pharmaceuticals, for example, that you could. And so each one of those industries have their own sort of peculiarities, if you know what I mean. But in all of those areas, what we're looking for are, again, things which are kind of high volume, highly repetitive, structured work. And inside every single one of those, there is a lot of that. I remember you were asking about pharmaceuticals before, so I looked at for life sciences, for example, and under life sciences, patient engagement is one kind of area, and very high potential for automation in patient engagement are recruitment and qualification, remote data collection, trial adherence, customer experience. So, when they've been testing drugs, think about what we've just been going through with COVID. First of all, the testing itself, then testing drugs, then getting people ready to have their inoculations. The amount of repetitive work which is involved in this, but has to be done at scale, is absolutely enormous. And so immediately it's obvious that robots can help. It's the same process, but they have to be done at scale. And so this COVID has been particularly an area, I think, where robots have helped a great deal right from the very beginning, and are still now taking place now. Life sciences and the development of the vaccines. That was just patient engagement. Then there's clinical research. And so, for example, you've got site selection, patient enrollment, trial master file transfer, I don't know what that is, quality assurance. I won't carry on, but the inside patient engagement, clinical research, drug discovery, manufacturing and supply chain, regulatory affairs and safety, marketing and commercial operations, you've got a huge amount of things there which are repetitive, at high volume, structured, which are perfect candidates for automation. Now, inside every vertical, you have that. So you might say, of course, that okay, what about like a hotel service? When there's a high degree of personal contact. I think where there's a high degree of personal contact, of course, the automation will not be as useful, of course, but it can be taking on a lot of the back-end tasks within for example, hotel operations, because there's a tremendous amount of just transactions which are occurring for a hotel operation. So, and again, that's sort of the point: is get all that automated so that you can free up the number of people who are able to have human contact and value creation and so on. I looked particularly, there was an example for Takeda Pharmaceuticals, because you were asking about the pharmaceutical industry, and Takeda Pharmaceuticals is one that we've been working with, and I noticed some information from them. I mean, they've been deploying robots, and they predicted savings of 4.6 million hours of office work per year using automation. I mean, that's a lot, of course. And we have a lot of organizations that do look at things in terms of these, millions of hours of office time saved. They had 18 streamlined processes, which they cut down to 3 overnight. And they're training 1,000 citizen developers in the next year as well. So this is, again, encouraging more and more automation. So particularly because you were asking about pharmaceuticals, you can see there's the horizontal areas that could be worked with, which are in every organization. Then you've got verticals which are peculiar to each particular industry, but every one of them has areas which have this sort of high volume transaction repetitive work. And then, you know, in every single industry, you've got lots and lots of examples of these of this automation potential.
Okay, so as long as we have the repetitive task and also the high volume task, right? We can like apply the RPA, right? Both the horizontal and vertical.
Yeah. They're particularly good candidates, of course, where you have high volumes of transactions, which are relatively structured. They're good candidates for this for automation.
Okay. Good, Andrew. Many people may be concerned that RPA is going to take over their job. How's your opinion? I
can understand that initial thought that people would have. You know, if I'm and from my perspective as a CEO, as an ex-CEO, and if I was talking to a CEO, if I was kind of thinking, if I were to say to the CEO, I could save you the cost of 10 people, or I could give you 10 people who are going to make your customers happier, help build you better products, help you get to new markets that you couldn't get to before. You know, if I could, I know what I would do as a CEO, because the value in that latter part, that second part, is so much greater than savings of 10 people, and that certainly is our mantra as a company. It's about value creation. It's about creating. It's about giving people time. I mean, everybody who works inside organizations, they have a lot of experience and they've got a lot of qualifications. But are we using that experience and qualifications if all they're doing is typing in things? So we must release that energy, as we talked about right at the very beginning, and apply it into how to make more money for the organization, how to make customers happier, how to make employees happier, how to reduce risk, how to increase operational efficiencies, how to create new products, how to go to market in different ways. That's what we can do. And there is an I mean, we're working with a lot of organizations in Thailand, of course, but one mobile operator, what they did, what I thought was very clever, they actually put the robots onto the organizational chart. So actually, you can see the robots on the organizational chart. They have job descriptions. They could be fired if they're not doing their job. And that gives a lot of transparency to the whole, you know, rather than robots being behind the scenes and kind of taking away jobs, you know, we put it out there on the organizational chart that they are there to be an assistant. They are your assistant. If I said I want to give Consomo her own personal robot that will do all of her mundane work, so that she could do something different and creative. That's the environment, and that's important. I think is when we begin the automation journey from a leadership perspective, that's something which is made clear from the beginning and is made clear in the journey as well.
Okay, good, Andrew. So you're gonna give the assistant to me as a robot, right? I think it's a good idea that you mentioned about robot to be like shown on the organization chart, so that people understand the role of that RPA things, right? That it's kind of the people, another like resource that can help us perform the task, and we do that, we can have more time to create other things, like
exactly
beyond that.
Exactly.
Okay, good, Andrew. And this is my last question. Would you like to leave the key takeaway for our OPEN-TEC audience?
Yeah, thank you. It's you know, all of us, we're all in technology, and I think because that probably means that we all like kind of new things and we all like change, and I think that's a good thing, because that's the only thing I was going to kind of add on is and we have talked about that inside our discussion today, is that, you know, we must be prepared to challenge and think of new paradigms. You know, there was a couple of examples I was thinking about when I went to DTAC, for example, when I was working at DTAC. That was back in 2007, and it was very much a voice company at the time, and actually, what was going to happen with 3G and 4G was that the things were going to move towards data. And it was quite interesting, actually, because I think everybody expected the people who joined from computer companies would not really be able to understand the telecommunications companies because they are voice orientated. But in actual fact, what happened over 10 years is that all of that side moved across to the data side because that was the new paradigm. That was the new way of working. And you had to really, you got to take your brain out and sort of think differently. And that's why, as we know, you know, the iPhone was successful and things. So we must challenge our own business models, even though that is sometimes counterintuitive to do that sometimes. So we must do that recognizing what's coming in the future, what's coming down the line. So not always easy to do, but as part of our community working in technology is to challenge these existing paradigms. A good example, I think, when I was going as a CEO to a global accounting firm is when I was there as an outsider from that industry, I recognized that in actual fact, technology was going to take over a lot of those jobs. And so we needed to rethink that what were our, you know, our very impressive employees with their great experience, what were they going to do every day when technology was in fact going to be doing all the accounting and making it easy for people. So you have to challenge existing business models and paradigms using technology. And if we don't do that, there's a sort of danger that you kind of say, okay, I can't see you, so you can't see me, kind of thing. So I think, and we must help, and we can help our customers do this as well. Yeah, and actually, automation is a great way to do that too.
Okay, so we should challenge the existing business model.
Yeah, yeah, always constantly do that. Yeah.
Okay, and apply technology, right?
Yes.
Including the automation.
Yes. Yep. Correct.
Okay, good, Andrew, and we really appreciate your kind presence in our Open Talk program today.
And thank you very much for inviting me. And please take care, everybody. And you know, more than welcome for people to connect with me on LinkedIn or send me any emails if they have any questions. So you can let me know.
Okay. Thank you so much, good Andrew.
Thank you so much. Okay, you take care there. Okay, bye-bye. See you. Take care. Stay safe.
Thanks all the audience for being with us. And this is Open Talk program under OPEN-TEC Technology Challenge Platform powered by TCC Technology Group. If you like us, don't forget to click like and subscribe to TCC Technology YouTube channel. See you in our next Open Talk. สวัสดีค่ะ